You know, there's a monumental shift happening across Europe right now, and it's kind of quietly reshaping real estate and construction.
Mm,
It might not be grabbing headlines like, say, the CSRD, but its long-term impact, I think it could be even bigger.
that's a strong claim.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, or the EPBD. You've shared some really fascinating material dated June 2025 that gives us a real glimpse of what's coming.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, is how directly this EPBD targets the buildings themselves, the actual physical assets. It makes it a real cornerstone of the EU's whole climate agenda.
Right.
So our mission today really is to pull out the critical stuff from these sources. We want you to understand not just what the EPBD is, but why it's such a big deal and what it means for building owners, tenants, even whole cities.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut, your essential guide to what's probably the real game changer in Europe's building sector right now. So let's get right into it. At its heart, what is this directive actually trying to achieve? What's the main goal?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, the EU climate goals,
Mm.
the EPBD essentially mandates that all buildings, all of them, meet minimum energy performance standards by 2030.
All buildings. Wow.
Yeah, it's all about drastically cutting carbon emissions from buildings and, just as importantly, boosting energy efficiency across the board.
Okay. So what are the specifics? Are there hard targets?
There are. The directive is aiming to help cut greenhouse gas emissions by at least 60% in the building sector by 2030. That's compared to 2015 levels.
60%. That's ambitious.
It is. And the ultimate goal, it's even bigger. Achieving a fully decarbonized, completely zero-emission building stock across the EU by 2050.
Okay, those are some huge numbers. That implies massive changes. What are the actual practical things being introduced to, make that happen?
Yeah, the sources you've got detail several key measures. First, there's a gradual introduction of minimum energy performance standards, starting with non-residential buildings.
Right, commercial properties and the like.
Exactly. Then there's a binding target for countries to increase the average energy performance of their residential buildings, homes, apartments, by 20 to 22% by 2035.
So that hits homeowners and landlords directly.
It does. Plus, they're pushing for enhanced long-term renovation strategies at the national level. And a big one, making energy performance certificates, EPCs, more reliable, better quality, more digital, all based on common EU criteria.
Ah, so standardizing the EPCs everyone sees when they buy or rent.
Precisely. They're also bringing in something called building renovation passports. Think of them as roadmaps to help owners plan out deep energy renovations, maybe step by step.
Interesting, like a guide for homeowners.
Kind of. And finally, a really crucial point, a gradual phase out of fossil fuel boilers. Gas, oil heating, they're on the way out.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. This isn't just about shiny new eco buildings, is it? It sounds like a huge, huge undertaking for basically every existing property.
Oh, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. The EPBD's reach is incredibly broad. It affects pretty much everyone involved in real estate.
So who are the main groups feeling the impact?
Well, the sources break it down quite clearly. First, you've got building owners, especially those holding older properties. They're facing potentially significant retrofitting costs to meet these new EPC rules, particularly in residential and mixed-use buildings.
Okay, makes sense. Who else?
Then there are social housing providers. They often manage huge portfolios, right? So they have this really tricky balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
Comply with the new standards, but keep housing affordable for vulnerable tenants. That's a major challenge.
Yeah, I can see that.
But-
And commercial.
For commercial real estate, the market dynamics are changing fast. Tenants, especially big corporate ones, are increasingly demanding energy-efficient spaces. So compliance isn't just about rules. It's becoming essential to stay competitive, to actually lease your space.
So market pressure is a big driver there.
Definitely. And finally, the public sector and municipalities. They're expected to lead by example, retrofitting their own buildings, libraries, schools, offices. Plus, governments are also tasked with providing funding and incentives to help everyone else comply.
So it really is comprehensive. It touches everything from my apartment building to the town hall. But, I mean, how on earth will they track all this progress across millions of buildings?
That's a really important question. How do you measure such a massive transformation? And your sources point to some key tools.
Okay, what are they?
Progress is mainly going to be tracked through those enhanced EPCs we mentioned, the new building renovation passports, and various digital platforms for monitoring energy performance.
Digital platform?
Yeah, think databases and tools that allow for better tracking. These aren't just about ticking boxes. They provide the actual data needed to see if things are improving, to manage compliance and, track those improvements over time.
Okay, that makes sense. Data is key, but what does this look like on the ground? Can we talk about some specific examples? How are different countries actually putting this into action already?
Yeah, let's talk about some real-world examples, because this is where the policy really hits home for you, the listener.
Right, and what's fascinating here is seeing the different approaches, the specific measures various EU countries are already implementing. Some are quite stringent.
Like who?
Okay, take Denmark. By 2026, so really soon, any renovation has to meet a SIG-Euro limit, 7.1 kilograms of co-euro equivalent per square meter per year.
Wow, that sounds specific and tough.
It's very ambitious, yeah. It basically means significant changes for many older buildings undergoing work. Then you have Finland. Starting in 2025, they're making life cycle carbon assessments mandatory for renovations, again, focusing on decarbonizing older buildings. So thinking about the carbon footprint over the whole life of the building materials in use.
Exactly. Now, France has its RE 2020 regulation. For new builds and major renovations, housing needs to meet a carbon threshold 530 kilograms CODIO by 2025. But here's the big one for the existing stock. Properties with an EPC rating of upper G, the worst performers,
Yeah.
they'll be banned from being rented out or sold by 2028. Completely banned.
Whoa, that's a hard deadline with real teeth.
It is. And Germany. They're tightening rules for new builds, nearly zero energy building standards, NZEB, while also requiring energy upgrades for older properties.
Okay. Any others?
The Netherlands is interesting too. By 2030, office buildings must achieve at least a C EPC rating just to remain operational.
So below C, you can't even use the office.
Potentially, yes. And they're looking at similar rental market restrictions like France. And even though the UK isn't in the EU, they're moving in a similar direction. They plan to progressively ban properties with poor EPC ratings from rental markets, aiming for a B rating or better for rented properties by 2030.
Okay, so what does this all mean? It's crystal clear this isn't some far-off theoretical thing. These changes are happening now, with concrete deadlines hitting soon. But let's flip this around. It can't all be stick, right? What are the actual upsides, the carrots, if you like, for complying?
That's a great question. Because while the upfront costs, the investments needed, can seem daunting, the long-term benefits really do stack up. This directive is fundamentally changing how we value buildings.
How so?
It's shifting the focus. It's not just location, location, location anymore.
Okay.
Increasingly, it's efficiency, 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 driving asset value and tenant demand.
Okay, so what are the tangible benefits?
Your sources highlight three key areas. First, access to green financing. This is huge. Building owners who invest in efficiency can get better loan terms, lower interest rates through specific green mortgages and loans.
Ah, the money side.
Exactly. The EU's Renovation Ways strategy. It's already mobilized over 100 billion euros for this kind of thing. Plus, there are green bonds specifically for funding large-scale eco-friendly renovations.
Okay, so financing help. What else?
Second, government incentives. Beyond EU funds, like the European Regional Development Fund or the Social Climate Fund, which particularly help vulnerable groups and public buildings, many individual countries offer their own support. Think tax credits, direct subsidies, or deductions for energy upgrades.
So direct financial support to ease the cost.
Precisely. And third, and this is maybe the most compelling for owners and tenants, a significant increase in return on investment, or ROI.
How does that work?
Well, retrofitting can cut energy consumption dramatically, sometimes up to 50%. That means major cost savings on bills year after year.
Okay, lower running costs.
But also, energy-efficient buildings simply command higher rents and higher sale prices. The market is recognizing their value. This benefits everyone: private owners, commercial landlords, even social housing providers managing their assets.
And tenants prefer them too, you mentioned.
Increasingly, yes, especially in the commercial sector. Sustainability and energy efficiency are becoming key factors, almost non-negotiable, in leasing decisions. Efficient buildings are just more attractive.
That's a pretty compelling list of incentives, a clear financial upside. But what if you don't comply? Let's look at the other side. What are the real risks, the dangers for those who just decide to ignore this?
Yeah, we need to talk about the risks because they are significant, and they're not just theoretical possibilities anymore. Non-compliance carries real weight.
Okay, like what? What are the direct consequences?
The documents outline several, and they tend to escalate. First up, straightforward fines and penalties. These vary by country, but some can be quite substantial fines. Up to 150,000 euros in some cases have been mentioned.
Ouch. Okay, fines. What else?
Second, those bans on renting or selling we talked about, this is a major one. Properties that don't meet the minimum standards could literally be taken off the market. Remember France banning F&G rated properties from 2028?
Yeah, that's a huge risk for landlords.
Huge. And similar rules are popping up elsewhere, like the Netherlands. Third, there's the laws of financing. If your property isn't compliant, you could be cut off from those green loans, subsidies, and tax breaks we just discussed.
So the help disappears just when you need it most to upgrade.
Exactly. It traps you. And maybe the biggest long-term threat under the EPBD is this concept of stranded assets.
Stranded assets, what does that mean exactly?
It means your building could essentially become obsolete, unmarketable, like an old phone nobody wants. It loses significant value because it fails to meet basic regulatory and market expectations for energy performance. Older, inefficient properties are most vulnerable here.
So we're talking falling property values, difficulty renting or selling, maybe even reputational damage on top of the fines. It really does sound like a fix it now or pay much, much more later scenario.
That sums it up pretty well.
Given all that, what are the biggest hurdles? What challenges are people facing trying to get this done?
Well, each sector faces its own specific and quite significant challenges in meeting these EPBD requirements.
Okay, let's break that down. For private owners,
For private owners, especially of older homes, the upfront cost of retrofitting can just be too high. There might be structural issues too, things that make upgrades difficult or even more expensive.
right, the practicalities of old buildings. What about social housing?
Social housing providers, as we touched on, have that incredibly difficult balancing act. They need to upgrade potentially vast numbers of homes to comply, but without pushing rents up so high that their low-income tenants can't afford to live there. It's a social and financial tightrope.
Very tough position. And commercial real estate.
In commercial real estate, it's about strategic planning and finding the capital for investment. They need to meet those rising tenant demands for green buildings, manage the upgrade costs effectively, and often deal with complex portfolios.
And the public sector.
The public sector has a dual role, really. They have the massive task of leading by example, retrofitting thousands of public buildings, which is hugely expensive. And they also need to provide the frameworks, the funding, the support systems to help the private and social sectors make the transition.
Okay, so it's clear there are major challenges across the board. What does this mean for the big picture? How can we ensure this transition happens smoothly or, as smoothly as possible, given these hurdles? Is it just about rules and money?
Well, collaboration between all these groups is absolutely vital. Policymakers, owners, finance, the construction industry, they all need to work together. But there's something else in your sources that really caught my eye, an element of innovation.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It was the focus on community engagement and even gamification.
Gamification?
Oh,
Seriously?
Up
For
away.
building regulations? That sounds unusual. How would that even work?
It sounds a bit strange at first, maybe, but it's actually quite clever. It acknowledges that top-down rules aren't always enough. You need buy-in from people on the ground.
Okay, so how do you gamify insulation?
Well, the idea is that local residents and tenants can play a really active role. For instance, building owners could set up digital platforms where tenants track their own energy use. Maybe they could compete against neighbors or earn rewards for hitting savings targets.
Huh. Like a competition for saving energy.
Exactly.
Mm.
Or municipalities could organize larger community challenges.
Yeah.
Whole neighborhoods trying to collectively reduce their energy consumption.
Okay, I can sort of see that. Why does this matter, though? Is it just a gimmick?
I don't think so, because it does two things. First, it raises awareness in a really direct, personal way. It makes energy use tangible. Second, it fosters a sense of ownership, collaboration. It turns energy efficiency from just another rule you have to follow into a shared goal, maybe even something fun or competitive.
Making it a collective effort, not just an individual burden.
Interesting. Yeah, it shifts the dynamic.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener? Whether you own property, rent, or you're just interested in how Europe's tackling climate change, what's the key takeaway?
I think the main takeaway is that the ETBD isn't just another piece of EU bureaucracy. It's genuinely a profound call to action for the entire real estate and construction sector in Europe, and acting now proactively. It unlocks real benefits.
Right, those benefits we talked about.
Exactly. Lower energy bills, which everyone wants, increased property values, access to that vital green financing, and crucially, buildings that meet these standards will simply be more attractive to tenants and buyers. That gives owners a real competitive edge in a market that's changing incredibly fast.
So it's really about much more than just ticking boxes or avoiding fines, isn't it? It sounds like it's about smart, strategic future-proofing. For buildings, yes, but maybe for communities too.
That's a perfect way to put it. Future-proofing. The momentum is undeniable, and the time to engage with this is really now.
Couldn't agree more.
By embracing these requirements, even with the challenges, stakeholders across Europe have this opportunity to, well, transform the continent's building stock into a genuine model of energy efficiency and sustainability. It really is about building a brighter, greener future.
So maybe as you go about your day-to-day, take a slightly different look at the buildings around you. The office you work in, the block you live on, the local library. What kinds of changes do you think these directives will actually bring to these everyday places over the next few years?
Mhm.
And maybe think about how these huge efforts in Europe might eventually ripple outwards. Could this inspire similar changes globally? Definitely something to chew on.